John, let me give you an example of where you're going awry with this idea of time. Suppose I'm a fly fisherman, and I fish a lake, and I fish around this lake, and reading the water. I fished to so many different presentations, and I considered the volume of water what mattered in my fishing. Now I put myself on a river, and I stand in the same spot, and I make the same presentation over and over and over again, while the water runs by. And I consider that I have fished as much water. The truth of the matter is the unit is not the water. It is the situation that we fish, which is the volume, which measures my fishing for the day. So, as time you yourself confess is not of equal value, it is not the unit of exchange. It isn't even true by your own testimony and explanation.
I'm already using it as a unit of exchange.
No, you claim to, but
yeah.
you're using a volume of time that has one value in one case and another value in another and another value in another. And the question, John.
To me with
John, if you're going to interrupt me like this, we're not going to have an interview.
Trying to answer it.
No, you're not allowing me to answer. You're talking through, and you haven't made any sense at all to me.
Well, then
I'm not stupid.
Let's do this on Saturday once live. I don't want to argue on tape. All right?
No, let's do it right now because I'm not going to be interrupted all day Saturday, so that you can. I mean, if you want to do this, I'll just play this interview.
You go ahead. Wonderful.
Okay.
You call them interruptions. I've never once objected to any time you wanted to jump in and make a point. That's my ethos. But, go play this. This is enough. I've explained enough here. But, I prefer to say, if we're going to argue, if we don't see eye to eye, if you think that...
All right, well, let's just test whether we can see eye to eye here.
Well, no, you said you don't see the time standard of money as the ideal value of currency.
Absolutely not.
So that's why let's just take it and let's have a debate. Make it exciting. And we both, okay? Because I'm not gonna win a debate that doesn't get played. All right? Debate, Saturday, live. What time is it on? I'll be here.
Things aren't going to work that way.
The next Saturday, live.
No.
The next Saturday after that.
You're debating me right now, John.
Well, I know, so I want to do it live.
Well,
from now on, okay? Because anybody who tells the professor...
No. Because I'm just not going to be interrupted if I want to make a point as well.
Like, you got the mic, you got the button, you can always press stop for a minute, but you shouldn't have to. Anyway, pick the time, whichever show you want, let me know, okay? Because I'm going to defend my time standard of money, and how Unilex is the perfect model offered to the world. All they got to do is do it to have a mathematically perfect economy. It's interest-free too. Except not only do we accept the gold standard for collateral at the bank, but we accept the time standard for people who have no gold.
And therein lies the critical flaw, because it's not the time standard. It's in each and every case, our standards, whatever they are, in how we evaluate the value of the property we acquire for whatever we give up. The dimension of which is not a standard unit of time, but all the things that go into doing whatever we do. So this oversimplification of the issue which confronts us is one thing, but the critical flaw of what he's just said is not that gold or time are the prospective collateral which justifies and should be perpetuated in the tokenization of value. Instead, it's our decision, indeed, to give up so much value as we determine in the value of the property. The value of the property, therefore, is the determinant of the units, and the units are just relative to anything and everything else that we might do. So, what's the debate?
How else are you going to give babies in Africa chips to buy, credit to fulfill Isaiah 55? You who are hungry and have no money, come buy and eat. How do you buy when you got no money? Credit's okay. How are you going to allocate credit to the starving babies in Africa? Based on what? They got no collateral, only on their time. Therefore, the time standard of money empowers humanity like a piece of gold in the eyes of the bankers for collateral.
Absolutely wrong again. Whatever they acquire is the collateral. And what they can provide, if allowed to do so, is their own production in return, which it can only be financed, of course, by further accommodation of promissory obligations to pay for whatever we acquire according to the rate of consumption or depreciation of the related property. So the lack of collateral is not an issue at all. The problem is, what is to be the collateral if the money is to have integrity? And it can't be time, because he himself is saying there are different values for time. A person can't pay with the same time that somebody paid for producing something that they acquire for their time. So all this talk about time being the universal unit is just mere gibberish. All of the discussion is about it not being universal at all. We have to amend it for this situation and that situation and every other situation. It is no universal unit at all.
That's what this means to me, okay? The starving baby in Africa. And that, I'm sure you realize, now put you on the spot. You know, what is the baby in Africa going to...
Excuse me, John.
What's the collateral of the baby in Africa you're going to want? The starving...
Well, obviously, you're not familiar with my work. First of all, it's the production of the person.
Question?
John, it's the production. You know, this,
and what's that?
You
That's
don't want to have a debate, John. What you want to do is talk to somebody and claim that you've solved all the problems.
That's
why you want to advocate that all this. That's what I'm saying.
You got me if you want to have a debate, okay? So you
no,
go.
That is not a debate, and if you don't have the manners to debate, then I'm sorry.
Why don't you just simply have the show and see if I have the manners? I think I'm pretty mannered. Anyway, you got the choice. You want to debate me?
All right, John. Thank you.
As civilized as I can do it. You got the choice. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
So that was John Turmel, prominent purported authority, monetary authority, prominent purported monetary reformist, purported inventor of Shift B inflation, a thing that doesn't even exist, proponent of time as a purported universal unit of value, which by everything that he said is not universal at all. As he and others indicated, he's advocating that, as he said earlier, even in this discussion, Douglas's social credit is a plausible solution. People don't understand this particularly well. I mean, the usual listener would wonder, what in the heck could that possibly mean? As much as, you know, this heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching discussion which we just witnessed. So I'd like to just close by reading a post, which is a consequence of all this controversy that we really do indeed need to see through. A fellow named David Swanson makes a post on the same People for Mathematically Perfected Economy at Facebook forum. He says, "Is it me, or is this social credit with a new paint job? I dig the name change." In other words, he's referring to Mathematically Perfected Economy as an implementation of social credit with a new paint job. Excuse me. The social credit that that Turmel here is advocating is not anything akin to social credit. It's an obfuscation or a morphine of social credit into more or less an approximation of mathematically perfected economy in only some respects. And as we just heard from JOHN TURMEL himself, he gives no accounting of inflation and deflation or paying off a promissory obligation at a rate of consumption or depreciation of the related property. And these are things that are mathematically proven by my work, And so he doesn't even bring them into his equations for some reason. So a credible person would, of course, have to wonder, well, and how can this proposition be credible? Either, on the one hand, this proposition of mathematically perfected economy brings things into the equation which are not, vital to resolution, or, on the other hand, this proposition of social credit or lets or uni-lets is itself not credible. The fact of the matter is there's a huge history behind this. So I answered this fellow on Facebook. David, social credit, this is just this morning as I was preparing today's show, I ended up answering quite a bit of this. David, social credit, as authored by Douglas at least, is no solution whatever. Instead, it is a pretended compensation for supposed flaws adorned with a preposterous equation which hardly answers for anything. I'm speaking about Douglas's A plus B theorem, which is much like, in its treatment of issues, much like what we just heard. Douglas not only doesn't even actually identify the fundamental faults of the present lie of economy, he doesn't rightly identify the consequences either, which nonetheless he sought in turn not to rectify at their fundamental causative level, but instead to roughly compensate us for them. In other words, as indicated by the extensive material furnished to me by the Social Credit and Douglas A plus B theorem forums in the mid-1990s, as a consequence of the huge reaction to MPE at Social Credit, all that their very own material showed is that A. Douglas was indeed looking for what faults he no more than intuited were imposed upon us by the present lie of economy, and B. Then not even identifying the faults, and no more than supposing their resultant quantity, he presumed to merely compensate us for the unidentified sum, hence the term social credit. In fact, then, it was my exhaustive arguments to the social creditors, headed or at least prominently participated by one William B. Ryan, which have resulted in social credit advocates assimilating some compromise of my work into theirs. For example, I've recently been informed that certain social credit advocates have been advocating that returning to the gold standard cannot solve the issues before us, that currency cannot be a commodity, and that the reason is currency must represent an ever different quantity of our production. This concept was introduced by my work, in what amounts on the one hand to be an exhaustive proof that there is one and one only